A Marriage of Convenience. Chapter 1. The ceremony was beautiful, at least that's what everyone said. Orm barely registered any of it. She stood still under the canopy of pale orchids, her hand resting stiffly in Ling's as the officiant recited vows that sounded more like a contract than a promise. Her dress was lace and silk, off-white and understated, chosen not for romance but for dignity. Dignity. She was supposed to keep that, even as her family sold her into marriage like it was still the 19th century. Her mother cried quietly in the front row. Her brother sat beside her, face unreadable. Ling, by contrast, looked carved from stone. Beautiful? Yes, almost too beautiful in her fitted, feminine wedding dress, her long black hair swept into a low ponytail. But cold. Impossibly cold. She said, "I do," with the same tone she might use to close a business deal. When it was over, there was polite applause. A kiss. Brief, dry, almost clinical. Then pictures. So many pictures. Orm smiled through all of it. Afterward, as the guests filtered out of the hall, she slipped away to a side room. She couldn't breathe in there anymore, not with the congratulations, the champagne, the people calling her lucky. Her mother and brother found her sitting alone, barefoot, heels dangling from her fingers. "You looked beautiful," her mother said gently. "I looked like a very expensive product being handed over to a client." Her mother didn't deny it. "You could have said no," her brother muttered, leaning against the wall. "No, I couldn't," Orm said quietly. They were silent for a while. The soft hum of distant conversation leaked through the walls. Her mother sat beside her. "You're a wife now." Orm gave her a withering look. "Don't remind me." "I'm serious," her mother said. "You may not have chosen this marriage, but it's real. And tonight, it's your first night." Orm flinched. "I know it's hard," her mother added, "but this is your life now." Her brother tried to joke. "She's not going to eat you." Orm stood. "Thanks for the support." But she didn't argue, and that terrified her more than anything else. The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. Orm's heels echoed sharply against the marble floor as she followed the maid down the grand hallway. Her suitcase rolled behind her, the soft click of its wheels the only sound accompanying her mounting dread. "This is your room, madam," the maid said gently, pushing open a heavy door. It was beautiful, of course. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a canopied bed, polished oak furniture, fresh flowers arranged in a vase on the dresser, and only one bed. Orm stood frozen in the doorway until the maid cleared her throat and offered a polite bow before retreating. She stepped inside slowly. Her hand hovered above the comforter, fingers brushing the soft fabric. She had expected separate rooms, or maybe she had hoped. Her suitcase felt heavier as she lifted it onto the bench at the foot of the bed. Mechanically, she unpacked her things, folding her clothes, setting out her skincare, slipping a satin nightgown over the hook on the bathroom door. Everything felt surreal. She kept waiting to wake up. The sun had set completely by the time she finished. The house was darker now, warmer, quieter still. She stood by the mirror, staring at her reflection. This was it. Her wedding night. No matter how many times her mother had reminded her it was expected, that it was normal between a husband and wife, or in this case, a wife and wife, it didn't make her feel any less exposed. She wasn't scared of sex, she was scared of Ling. Not because she thought Ling would hurt her, but because Ling didn't seem to feel anything at all. That unreadable gaze, that flawless face, that cold detachment. What kind of woman took a virgin to bed like it was business? Orm exhaled shakily and reached for the nightgown. She changed slowly, carefully, tucking her hair behind her ears and smoothing the fabric down her sides. She left the light on. Then she climbed into bed and waited. The silence stretched. Then the door opened, and Ling stepped in. Ling stood in the doorway. Her dark eyes swept over Orm, curled on one side of the bed in her satin nightgown. The silence pressed in between them like a wall, but Ling didn't flinch. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and began to undo the buttons of her dress straps. Orm sat up slightly, heartbeat thudding in her throat. Ling didn't speak. She removed her outer layer of her gown, folded it neatly, and placed it over the back of a chair. She undid the first few buttons of her bodice, revealing the faint swell of her chest, feminine but strong. Orm couldn't look away. This was real. Ling crossed the room, each step slow, controlled. She didn't ask permission. She pulled back the covers and climbed into bed beside Orm, who tensed instinctively. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ling said quietly, her voice low and even. Orm's throat tightened. "I know." Ling reached out, brushing a strand of blonde hair away from her face. "Have you done this before?" Ling asked. Orm shook her head. Ling exhaled through her nose. "Okay." There was no ceremony to what came next, no sweet words, no hesitation. Ling pushed Orm gently onto her back and slipped her hand beneath the hem of her nightgown. Orm gasped as fingers found her, delicate at first, exploring, coaxing. Her body betrayed her quickly, warmth spreading between her thighs. Ling's lips ghosted across her neck, her shoulder, her collarbone. "Relax," she whispered, sliding one finger inside. Orm clenched around her instinctively, breath shuddering. "It's okay," Ling murmured. "You're tight. That's normal." Orm flushed with shame, but the words weren't cruel. They were observational, detached. A second finger joined the first. Ling's hand moved with practiced ease, pressing slow and deep. Her thumb stroked over Orm's clit. Orm whimpered. "Good girl," Ling said softly. Orm's hips bucked, her legs trembled. She came suddenly, sharply, gasping Ling's name. Ling held her until it passed. Then, without a word, she pulled the blanket over them and turned away. Orm stared at the ceiling in the dark, her body still pulsing. She'd just given her virginity to a stranger, and she didn't even know how to feel. The room was dark except for the moonlight slicing through the curtains. Ling slept beside her, breathing slow and even, back turned. Orm lay on her side, eyes wide open. Her thighs were still sticky. Her chest still rose and fell too fast. She could feel the ache inside her, the unfamiliar stretch where Ling had been. It didn't hurt exactly. It just felt real. Undeniably real. She clutched the sheets to her chest, suddenly cold. Was this what marriage was supposed to feel like? She hadn't cried at the ceremony, hadn't cried when they signed the papers, not even when her mother told her, gently but firmly, that this was the only way to save the family from ruin. But now, under the weight of silence and clean sheets and Ling's perfect, unfeeling body, the tears came. Silent, hot, shameful. Not because she regretted what happened, but because she didn't. Her body had responded too easily. Her skin still tingled where Ling had touched her. Her mind kept playing the sound of Ling's voice, calm, controlled, saying, "Good girl." Orm pressed her face into the pillow. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She thought she'd feel humiliated, disgusted, angry. Instead, she felt lost. She rolled onto her back and stared at the ceiling. The fan spun overhead. Somewhere outside, a cicada buzzed. Ling shifted slightly, still asleep. Orm glanced at her, half expecting her to wake up and say something, anything, but she didn't. She was beautiful, even now. The blanket had slipped down, baring the smooth line of her back. Orm bit her lip. How could someone like her be so cold? And why did her indifference sting more than the act itself? She turned away, hugging the pillow tight, trying to make herself small. Eventually, exhaustion overtook her. She fell asleep in silence, her heart aching in ways she didn't yet understand. Orm woke slowly. The first thing she noticed was the sunlight bleeding through the sheer curtains. The second was the emptiness beside her. Ling was gone. The space where she'd slept was cold. The pillow didn't even carry her scent. Orm stared at it for a long time, unsure how to feel. She pushed herself upright, wincing slightly at the dull ache between her legs. It was a reminder of everything that had happened, and everything she couldn't take back. She slipped out of bed and padded to the bathroom. The face in the mirror didn't look different, but it felt different. Her hair was mussed. Her cheeks slightly flushed. There was something fragile in her own gaze, something she couldn't name. She showered slowly, letting the hot water soothe her. Back in the bedroom, a set of clothes had been laid out for her. A crisp blouse, a pale skirt, both modest and expensive. She wondered if Ling had picked them, or if the maid had simply followed instructions. She got dressed in silence. Downstairs, the house was already alive. A maid greeted her with a soft, "Good morning, madam," and offered her a tray of fruit and tea. Orm took it mechanically and sat at the dining table. Ling wasn't there. Instead, a note lay by the edge of the plate, written in clean, looping handwriting. "Had an early meeting. Make yourself at home. Ling." Orm stared at it, then folded it in half without reading it again. Of course she had a meeting. Of course she hadn't stayed. What did she expect? Breakfast in bed? A kiss on the forehead? This wasn't a real marriage. It was a transaction. A contract signed in silk and skin. Still, something about the empty seat across from her felt like a bruise. She picked at the fruit, appetite gone. Then she sat there, silent and alone, pretending it didn't matter. Orm found them in the guest wing. Her mother was already sipping tea in a floral robe, and her brother was lounging on the couch with a banana in one hand and the television remote in the other. "There she is," he said with a grin, "Madam Ling herself." Orm rolled her eyes and dropped into the armchair across from them. "You didn't come back to the room last night," her mother said gently. Orm folded her arms. "I stayed in the master bedroom." "Of course you did," her brother smirked. "So, how was it?" Orm narrowed her eyes. "I'm not discussing that with you." Her brother shrugged. "You're married now. It's normal." "It didn't feel normal." Her mother gave her a sympathetic look. "It takes time. The first night is always strange. There's strange, and then there's clinical," Orm muttered. Her brother leaned forward. "Was she bad?" Orm blinked. "What?" "You know," he said, lowering his voice theatrically. "Does she just mount you like some kind of dominant CEO and get it over with?" Orm grabbed a pillow and threw it at him. "Shut up!" he burst out laughing. Even her mother cracked a smile. "Be nice, Can." "I'm just saying," he said, still grinning. "You used to be the icy one in relationships. Looks like you met your match." Orm groaned and buried her face in her hands. "This is humiliating." "No," her mother said softly. "This is marriage, and yours just began. It'll be what you make of it." Orm looked up slowly. She didn't respond, but she thought about the way Ling had touched her, the calm authority in her voice, the way Orm's body had betrayed her, despite everything. Her brother threw another grape at her. "You'll be glowing in no time." She caught it and hurled it back, but she didn't deny it. Night fell quickly. Orm lay in bed again, freshly showered, nightgown smoothed over her skin like armor she didn't believe in. The mansion was quiet, so quiet she could hear the distant hum of appliances and the occasional creak of the wooden beams. She stared at the ceiling, wondering if Ling would come, and what it would mean if she didn't. The door opened just past midnight. Ling entered without a word, dressed in black slacks and a simple blouse. She looked immaculate, as if she hadn't been working all day, as if she hadn't kept Orm waiting in silence. Orm sat up slightly. Ling didn't greet her. She took off her earrings, her blouse, folded each piece of clothing with eerie precision. Then she walked to the bed, pulled back the covers, and climbed in. There was no discussion. Ling moved over Orm without speaking, her body warm, her touch efficient. She kissed Orm's neck, slid her hand beneath the nightgown again, fingers finding familiar territory. Orm's breath caught. This time, it wasn't quite so shocking. Her body remembered. Her skin flushed under Ling's hand. Ling mounted her slowly, positioned herself between Orm's thighs, and pressed their bodies together, grinding, hips rolling, their slick warmth meeting in quiet friction. Tribbing. Orm gasped softly. Her fingers curled in the sheets. Ling remained calm, focused, her face barely betraying effort. She slid a hand between them and stroked Orm's clit as she rubbed their sexes together. Slowly at first, then harder. Orm whimpered. Her legs trembled. "Take it," Ling murmured. Orm nodded, eyes wide, lips parted. I am. Ling's breath hitched once. Good girl. Orm came hard, legs shaking, chest arching, breath punched from her lungs. Ling kept moving until her own body tightened, a quiet exhale her only giveaway, then it was over. Ling rolled off her, pulled the blanket up, and turned away. Orm stared at her back in the dark, a strange ache blooming in her chest. Routine. It was becoming routine. The silence after was the worst part. Ling's breathing evened quickly. Her body remained still, composed, facing away. Orm lay on her side, staring at the back of her wife's head, heart still racing. She hadn't expected to come again. Not like that, not so quickly. But Ling knew what she was doing. Every touch was calculated, confident, possessive. Orm's thighs still trembled. She reached down instinctively, pulling the sheets tighter around her. Her body ached, not from pain, but from how quickly she'd yielded. Again. What scared her wasn't the physicality, it was how much she wanted it, how much she already craved it. The coldness afterward, the way Ling gave her pleasure without a word, then turned her back, only made Orm want to chase something warmer. She didn't even know what she was looking for. Eye contact? A kiss? Orm pressed her face into the pillow. She wasn't supposed to care. This was a marriage of necessity, a transaction. Ling had saved her family, paid off the debts, and in return, she got Orm's hand, and her body. Orm had agreed. She'd said yes. No one forced her. So why did she feel like something was slipping out from under her control? She turned onto her back and stared at the ceiling. Again. Always the ceiling. She could still feel Ling's skin on hers, the slick glide of her thigh between Orm's legs, the firm grip of fingers that never trembled. Ling was so composed, so unfazed, like she'd done this 100 times. Maybe she had. Orm wanted to ask, wanted to know, but her pride bit the question down. She lay in the dark, unspeaking, and let the ache in her body settle. Ling's presence loomed beside her, silent but heavy. And Orm knew, with sick certainty, that tomorrow night would be the same. And part of her didn't hate that at all. The next morning, Orm woke before the sun. She didn't move at first, just lay there, listening to Ling's slow, steady breaths beside her. The blankets had tangled around their bodies, and Orm could feel the heat from Ling's thigh pressed against hers. She turned her head slightly. Ling was beautiful in the soft light, her long lashes casting faint shadows, her lips parted just enough to look almost human, vulnerable. Orm studied her face, searching for cracks in the mask, for something real. She didn't find it. Ling stirred as Orm shifted to sit up. Her eyes fluttered open, but there was no sleepiness in them, just that same clear, unreadable calm. "Good morning," Ling said quietly. It was the first time she'd said anything to Orm in the morning. Orm blinked. "Morning." There was a pause, longer than necessary. Then Ling sat up, swung her legs out of bed, and reached for her robe. "I have meetings until late. Don't wait up." That was all. She stood, crossed the room, and disappeared into the bathroom. Orm sat frozen, the sheets pulled to her chest. 3 nights, 3 times. Not once had Ling kissed her on the mouth. That shouldn't matter, but it did. She got out of bed, wrapped herself in the silk robe hanging nearby, and moved to the window. The garden below was already waking. Misted roses, trimmed hedges, the faint chirp of birds. The whole world was blooming, and she was stuck in a marriage that felt like a business contract sealed with sex. Still, something strange pulled at her chest. She wanted to be seen, not just touched, not just taken, seen. And the more Ling withheld, the more Orm found herself desperate for it, even if she didn't understand why.